أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم. When we read last week, we stopped upon the ayat in which Allah Ta'ala spoke about, and Allah Ta'ala says that He created the earth to be in the service of the human being, and this is Allah Ta'ala's mercy, and that everything shall be resurrected and go back to Allah Ta'ala, and that Allah Ta'ala then questions the human being, the disbelievers in specific, those who are heedless, of the punishments that can possibly be sent down. Allah Ta'ala reminds the human being of the punishments which had already taken place and how they can take place again very easily. And Allah Ta'ala says that, do you find yourself to be safe from the one in the sky who can make the earth to swallow you, or the one who can send upon you the stones, referring to punishments that had already taken place as well, like the likes of Qarun and the likes of the qawm of Lut, alayhi salatu wasalam. And Allah Ta'ala then says, and we continue off from there, وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرٌ. That surely the people before them, before the disbelievers of today, surely the people before them had also denied, they also disbelieved. And so how great was our condemnation? How great was our condemnation of their disbelief? And so Allah Ta'ala's, again referring that if Allah Ta'ala punished them, and it was very easy for Allah Ta'ala to punish them, it's not very difficult that Allah Ta'ala can send such a punishment once again. And how great was that punishment, how great was that condemnation upon the people before. fakaifa kaana nakeer. How such a condemnation it was. And so Allah Ta'ala, like when a person, a student in a school, he commits a crime or commits something wrong within the school, and the principal may call them, right? And they know that this is something that we've dealt with before. It's not something we're dealing with for the first time. Disbelievers always think at their time that whether it be due to their rationale or whether it be due to any other reason, that they're enjoining upon some sort of new understanding or some sort of thing which has never been done before. Right? An atheist today believes that he's coming to understanding which no one else has ever came to before. Right? And so they think that no one else has ever understood this. The people of religion up till now have been dogmatic, just taking things without actually thinking about them. Right? This is how disbelievers feel. And then they feel at ease. They feel calm, right? So Allah Ta'ala said before that, are you going to feel calm about the punishments which happened before? Are you going to remain calm and at ease with such punishments having taken place when it can easily fall upon you again? Right? Such punishments can easily fall upon you once again. So how are you going to be at ease? Right? How are you going to be heedless of this? And so Allah Ta'ala reminds of the punishments of the people before. Then in the next ayah Allah Ta'ala says, Awalam yaraw ila tairi fawqahum saaaffaatinw yaqbidn. That do they not see to the birds above them, which in a continuous state remain firm and stable within the skies, floating, elevating within the skies, and they will fly in rows, in perfect rows. وَيَقْبِضْنَ. And then from time to time, they flap their wings. and we'll explain that part after. But مَا yumsikuhunna illa rahmaan, and nothing is holding them in place but the Rahman, the most merciful. innahoo bikulli shai basir, and surely He is overwatching and well knowing of everything. Why is Allah Ta'ala mentioning the birds after Allah Ta'ala speaking of punishment? What is the first thing that an Arab from Makkah should think of when he thinks of birds? He should think of Abraham. Allah Ta'ala speaking of punishment. Allah Ta'ala can use the birds that came before, that are flying above you. Allah Ta'ala used those birds to ruin and destroy Abraham and his army. This is the first thing that should come to the Arabs of Makkah. Again, this surah was revealed when? In Makkah. It was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ in the earlier days of Islam in Makkah. And so Allah Ta'ala says, do they not see the birds that are above them, flying high above them, and they're soaring? saaaffaatinw yaqbidn. Now if you look at the grammatical structure of the words, Allah Ta'ala used the word saaffat, which is a noun, and then for the word after, Allah Ta'ala used a verb. Because Allah Ta'ala is, giving us the picture of how and how amazing it is, right? How the birds fly in the sky. It's something which only happens because of the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. That they're generally in a continuous state, that they're soaring. Saaffat, they're soaring. And then sometimes when they need to raise higher, or when they need to, increase their speed or agility, they will flap their wings. Allah Ta'ala says this. But for the most part, they're soaring, and then from time to time, when they need to, then they'll flap their wings. And this is the system which Allah Ta'ala created, right, for the birds. مَا yumsikuhunna illa rahmaan. But what's holding them in the place? What's holding them in place is Allah Ta'ala the Merciful. And it makes sense, right? And it ties perfectly this name and sifa being mentioned over here. Because Rahman is the one of the mercy, which His mercy is general. His mercy is general to all of His creation. Ar-Rahman. His mercy is general to all His creation. So who's holding them in place is the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. It's Allah Ta'ala's mercy. innahoo bikulli shai basir. And although the translation may be for this, that He's overwatching over everything, right? Basir is a much more strong sifa, quality and attribute of Allah Ta'ala, which has to do with more than just seeing. But it's to see so deep into something that you see its core. You see its core and you internalize its essence, and you know exactly what it is. Allah Ta'ala, for Allah Ta'ala, there's no difference between something which is completely open, the sun, and something which is completely hidden and under a rock. Nothing's different for Allah Ta'ala. For Him, everything is known, everything is seen. Right? And Allah Ta'ala is all knowing of this, Allah Ta'ala is all seeing of this. And then in the next ayah, Allah Ta'ala says, أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ يَنْصُرُكُم مِّن دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. The next ayah is then a sort of transition in which the word is also used. Can be used for, linguistically for transitioning, when you transition from one, speech to another form of speech. And although it's a transition, it ties to what is before it. It ties to what is before it. And this all ties to the beginning of the surah, which is وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. And Allah Ta'ala has the power and capability to do everything. Right? The insan thinks he is the owner of a mulk. Right? We're talking about Surah Al-Mulk. The insan thinks he's an owner of a mulk, but remember the mulk of Allah. Right? Remember the dominion of Allah. Remember the power of Allah. Right? That's why Allah Ta'ala is speaking of His power over here, of His punishments, etc. And so then Allah Ta'ala says that transitioning to the next statement, and who is this? And who is this who will be an army for you and give you aid from besides the Rahman, from besides Allah Ta'ala? Surely the disbelievers are not but in deception. So Allah Ta'ala says, Man hadha alladhi huwa jundun lakum. That who is this person, or who is this being who is going to help you besides the Rahman when you're going to take war with Allah Ta'ala? Who is this being? It's a rhetorical question. That's why the answer is not here. Because the answer is no. There's no one. There's no one who can help you. So who is this being who is going to give you their strength and help you from besides the Rahman? And dun is a very special word, because dun generally means that which is below something. So even Allah Ta'ala is giving a message over here that everything which you're going to try to take help from, which you think by it you might fight the laws of Allah, go beyond Allah Ta'ala's system, that, remember, at the end of the day is still below Allah. So it's like whatever you're taking help from, you're taking help from the system of Allah. It's not, you're not bringing your own power anyway, even if you were to do so. And then, but Allah Ta'ala is asking a question to the disbelievers of how they're going to go against Allah, but Allah Ta'ala is mentioning how they're going to go against the Rahman. Why is Allah Ta'ala mentioning the Rahman? Right? Why would any person want to take on a battle with the Rahman anyways? And there are a few beautiful understandings that we can deduce from this. Number one being, you as a human being, you disbelieve in Allah, you try to take a war on with Allah. You couldn't even handle Allah Ta'ala's punishment if He were to punish you in the state that the quality of Rahman is manifesting. Imagine if you were to manifest as Jabbar. Imagine if you were to manifest as Muttaqeen, the one who punishes. You cannot even take Allah Ta'ala on while He's being merciful, while He's manifesting in His state of mercy. Then how could you take on Allah Ta'ala if He actually wants to punish you, and if He's actually Jabbar and He's Muntaqim, which is also from Allah Ta'ala's attributes, that He punishes, right? In that condition, how are you going to, how you couldn't even face Allah Ta'ala in that condition. The other thing being that, as we referred to earlier, which is that how are you going to take help from anything? The Rahman at the end of the day is the one who helps. What help are you going to take, and where are you going to take it from? The Rahman is the one who helps. And the third benefit we can get from Allah Ta'ala mentioning Rahman here is that Allah Ta'ala at the end of the day wants every person to contemplate, wants every person to think. Right? Why are you going to take on a war with the one who created you? Why are you going to take on a war with the one who has mercy on you? Why would you take on a war? Right? So you get that similar rhetorical meaning, which is in the ayah, Ya ayyuhal insan, ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. That, oh insan, o human being, right? The same ghurur, gharra, is mentioned at the end of the ayah here, right? In al-kafiruna illa fi ghurur. They're in deception. That, oh human being, what has deceived you with, believing in your very generous and kind Lord? What has deceived you? So the same thing over here, that who are you taking a battle with? The one who sustains you. Who are you taking a battle with? The one who takes care of you. Why would you take a battle on with such a being, with Allah Ta'ala? And similar for what we mentioned earlier, Allah Ta'ala speaks of, He's going to, Allah Ta'ala mentions it after as well, that Allah Ta'ala sustains you, and like Imam al-Baqai rahimahullah said that the disbelievers, what do? يَأْكُلُونَ خَيْرَهُ وَيَعْبُدُونَ غَيْرَهُ. That they eat all the goodness. At the end of the day, every person living in this dunya is eating all the goodness which Allah Ta'ala gives him. They're living only because Allah Ta'ala has ordained for them to live, right? And they're benefiting from all those benefits. But then they go and they worship someone else. Right? They go and they give their alliance and loyalty to someone else. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ إِنْ أَمْسَكَ رِزْقَهُ بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. Who is this? Now who is this person? Who is this being? And Allah Ta'ala, like in the previous ayah as well, to show emphasis that, to ask that where is this? Allah Ta'ala is saying, هَذَا الَّذِي, this. Hada is a tool which is used to point, to signal to something. Hada, That who is this? Where is it? Show me. Where is this being? Who is this being? Amman hadha alladhi. Who is this being who is going to sustain you if Allah Ta'ala were to hold His provision? If Allah Ta'ala were to uphold His sustenance? Because every single being is being sustained by Allah. Maybe you say you can sustain yourself for a couple hours, a couple days. But what about the whole perfect system? The whole perfect system of the dunya and besides the dunya of creation which is being sustained. Right? This whole system, you know, just sometimes when an animal goes endangered or extinct, right, it has effects on the world, on the ecosystem. Right? Allah Ta'ala is sustaining, besides the human beings, so many creations every day. Allah Ta'ala is sustaining them. Right? And Allah Ta'ala is sustaining them at greater rates and greater degrees than the human being. Right? What if Allah Ta'ala were to stop that system? Right? Who's going to come and fill that place? So in the first ayah, the one before, it's more of a direct threat, that who's going to give you the power to stand up against Allah. And this is an indirect form, that fine, Allah Ta'ala won't send down a punishment, but what if Allah Ta'ala would uplift a benefit? Right? So if Allah Ta'ala were to send down a punishment, it's clear you will be destroyed. But even the ni'mas of Allah are so important to you, what if Allah Ta'ala were to uplift it? What if Allah Ta'ala were to uplift it? That in itself would be a punishment for the human being. That in itself would be a punishment for the human being. And I didn't mention the last ayah, innal kafiruna illa fi ghurur. In the last ayah, Allah said that the disbelievers are surely within deception. Now Allah Ta'ala uses Allah Ta'ala gives pictures to the human being within using language which are just very eloquent. Allah Ta'ala says that the disbelievers are but in deception. Deception is not something you can be inside of, right? It's not a being, it's not a box or something that you can go inside of it. But Allah Ta'ala is saying that these people, when they just they persist and they literally fall inside of a deception in such a way that they get lost within it. Allah Ta'ala mentions this ghurur, which is deception, to be like a being, like something. You get lost inside of it. Allah Ta'ala is saying that these disbelievers, they're just completely lost within this. And so after Allah Ta'ala says that, who is this being who is going to sustain you if Allah Ta'ala were to uphold His sustenance? بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. There is no, and right, Allah Ta'ala is saying bal over here as well. This is another tool of emphasis by which Allah Ta'ala is conveying the meaning, which is rather they will persist in utu and nufur, and we'll explain what that means. But lajju means to continuously go into something, and it's taken from the word lujja, which means the depths of the ocean. So when a person goes in, you travel, you travel in the ocean, and then you reach a point where you're near lujjatul bahar, the depths of the ocean, where it's really deep, and then a person were to jump into that depth, and he continues to dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Allah Ta'ala is saying that that's the way that these people are transgressing. They're just going deeper and further and further and further in transgression. And lajju fi utuwin. Utu means transgression. It means to go beyond boundaries. It means to exceed something. And so, for example, utu also can be referred to and used as sometimes oppression. Right? So these people, they're transgressing, lajju fi utu. And so they're continuously within their transgression going further and further. وَنُفُورٍ. And they dislike and run away from the truth. Nufur, its original meaning is when an animal may see a predator and it runs and it flees away. So they flee away from the truth. That's what Allah Ta'ala is saying. And nufur can be that type of behavior or that type of emotion which comes upon a person which cause them to stay away from something. So the disbelievers, when they hear the truth, this is how they react. That لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍ وَنُفُورٍ. And even till this day, right? A lot of people, a lot of the, all the disbelievers who they actually contemplate, and Allah Ta'ala says every disbeliever at one point in their life they see the signs, they contemplate it. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ. Allah Ta'ala says we show them all the signs. Even if they have to look just in the horizons, they'll see the signs. Every person at one point in place, because it's an inner built system to think of Allah, it's an inner built system to worship Allah, they think and they contemplate about this stuff. But what happens? They just persist to ignore it. They persist to not like it, because then what happens? If you put your head down to the higher order, then there's so many things you have to change of your life. There's so many things that you're going to have to follow that you may not want to follow, and the ego of the human being goes against that. The nafs, which drives the human being, doesn't allow him. So that nafs pushes the person to persist upon transgression. And that nafs causes what is the nufur within the person, the nufur, to dislike the truth. In the next ayah, and we conclude with this ayah, أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ أَهْدَى أَمَّنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. And then Allah Ta'ala mentions another ayah, which is another rhetorical question, and we end the passage with this, and it ties to everything which is before, right? The people, how they neglect, why they neglect, and now Allah Ta'ala is telling us of the clear condition of the people who neglect and the people who don't neglect, the people who follow, and how they differ. Allah Ta'ala says, and is the one who is walking in a condition, the one who is walking in a condition upon which he's continuously falling right over his face. So that person's trying to walk, but every single time he takes a step, he falls over. He stands up, he falls over. He stands up again, and then he falls over. Right? That person, and the person, أَمَّنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا, or the person who is walking, and he's walking in a condition that he's easily going forward, he's not having any difficulty to walk. That person is the person who walks and falls over his face more guided than the person who's walking straight upon a straight path. Right? So this completely sums up everything before, speaking of the believers and the disbelievers. That is the person who walks in a condition who is continuously falling over his face, more guided. Ahda, is he more guided? Would you ever consider that person to be more guided than the one who is walking not only himself, he's walking upon a straight path, he's walking in a straight manner, in a correct manner, but then his path in front of him is also paved. Sirat al-Mustaqeen. His path in front of him is also paved, and it's a straight path. Right? And as for the person who is not walking, not only is he unable to walk correctly, but there's no mention of the path in front of him. He doesn't have a path. People in this world who don't believe, they don't have a path. Right? This is the biggest tragedy. They lack meaning. They lack purpose. They lose this essence of purpose, of place. Right? They can't come to understanding with it. They can't cope with it. So Allah Ta'ala doesn't even mention them having a path. Right? As for the person who's walking in a straight manner, Allah Ta'ala mentions for them they have a path. The others, they don't even have a path. Where are they going to get? Right? They're not going to get anywhere. So would you consider that person to be more guided, or the one who's walking straight and he's walking upon a straight path? Other mufassirun as well, they mention that possibly this is referring to the hereafter, that those people who will be walking upon the sirat, and there will be people who will be falling over upon their faces. Is that person going to be in a better condition, in a more guided condition, or the people who will be, Allah Ta'ala will give them aid, and they will have nur, and they will have light in front of them, and they will have light around them, by which they will surpass the sirat, and they will make their journey upon the straight path to Jannah. Right? Not only is the journey different, but the destination is also different. Right? Not only is the journey different, but the destination is also different, and that alone should tell us of the difference. May Allah make us from the people who walk upon the straight path. May Allah Ta'ala give us understanding of this. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka Allahumma wa natubu ilayk. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Jazakumullahu khairan.